Well, I think we may as well kick off. It's 1:05 now, so it'll give us the maximum amount of time together. So welcome to you all. I'm going to share my screen with you so that I can do the PowerPoint presentation. So if I share this one and then press that one, and then if I minimize my little window there, then that won't show too much on the recording. So welcome to you all to our, oh, did I do that? That's better. The second part of our series on if only we had a better website or social media presence. The first part is on the website, so you can catch up with that if you wish to. It's on our If Only page, and I'll give you the address for that in a moment. There is no compunction to have been to the first part before coming to the second part. It is a standalone session as well, although it would be good for you to be able to catch up on what we talked about in part one, because part two is a bit more hands-on and a bit more sort of, well, this is what sort of is involved and what you actually need to do to actually get things going. And, you know, if you're going to sell this to your church, these are the sorts of things that you're going to have to mention to your church meeting and hopefully get people on board with. So I put together a short agenda for our time together. The first part of before we have our coffee break will be tools for building. So we'll look at websites and at social media. And then in the second half, whereas we're going to also devote time to any questions that you might have and the next steps, we're actually going to have a small section on podcasting. This is part of something that was brought up at the last meeting, and Mike is going to give a short presentation on that as part of the thinking of, you know, what else are we looking at doing sort of, to connect ourselves on the internet? So that's that second side. So just to remind you where the actual recording is, and also where a PDF copy of these notes will be. You don't have to furiously be scribbling down everything I'm saying, because this PowerPoint as a PDF will appear on the If Only website. So if you typed into your browser congregational.org.uk/website webinar, it will take you directly to the page, and you'll be able to access the PDF there, and also last times, and also watch the recordings there. If you want to recap on anything, watch last times. So they're all there in one place as well. And just a reminder as well that whilst it's me who's presenting this, a lot of my thinking has come from other tools that are around and about that I would recommend heartily to you. Church Juice do a very good blog asking questions about, the way that that churches should be sharing on social media or with websites. Pro Church Tools also do a tremendous series of YouTube videos, how to, basically. They're both American ones, so just to sort of even it out a bit, I've put together the two Facebook groups for Church Comms Collective and Church Tech UK that actually also help people who have problems or want inspiration, want ideas, and it's a very good little forum that is there on Facebook as well. So at the end of our last session, we said that looking forward to session 2, we would look very much at the practicalities behind Wix, which is a website building website, and also at Canva, which is a social media creation suite. And also we would say, how can the CF help as well? So that's sort of, part of what our goals are moving forward into this session. But I'm going to begin with thinking about our building tools for websites. Now, this isn't a hands-on, this is how you do it, because that would just be too much for a group like this. This is simply to say, this is what is out there And this is how you could go about doing, creating your own church website, virtually from scratch. You need to have a plan in mind about the pages that you'd want, the suites you would, of pages that you need to have to relay your church information. But once you've got that all together, places like Church Edit, I'm going to come on to Wix in a moment, is an ideal place to begin. I taught Newcastle under Lyme Congregational Church through the process of Church Edit, and they created quite a wonderful website with my help. I actually designed it for them, and then they put all the content on the pages and maintained it. So it is a very easy to build church website, and it has all the things that you need for your website. It's got a very simple page builder, so it's a very easy to use editor. They have a wonderful selection of templates so that you can just customize their free templates for your own church use, or they do also do bespoke design packages as well, but that's obviously more expensive. You can share audio on there, so if you record your services at church, you can upload audio files. The basic package only has up to 10 audio files, but you can put more on if you share them. Although, of course, with all these websites, you can provide workarounds so that you provide links to an external site. Then people can, for instance, Google Drive, you could upload all your sermons onto there and just provide the link for people to access the recordings that way. They also do forms and church calendar. You can share video, daily message, unlimited photos, mobile friendly, all the sort of features that you would expect from a website. And it's also UK based, which is a great help as well. So they are very good with their support as well. And I mentioned their templates. This is the basic package that they do. They have a large variation on these types, but you may remember me saying last time about having frames on your website. Well, these are very good frame-based websites that they are putting everything into here. So, that's the sort of standard that they do. But obviously, if you do decide to go down the more bespoke end, they will do these wonderful setups for you as well. I mentioned last time about the power of graphics, and there you are in front of you, some wonderful pictures that some churches are using. And simply just to explain to you their editing, their pricing systems, they have a system where you have one editor. It'll cost you £175 per year. Up to 5 editors, £215 a year. Now, I was going to say up to 10 and up to 15 editors, but trust me, if you've got 15 editors in your church, I'm going to come to your church and shake you by the hand because you're doing a fantastic job. Usually it's just 1 or 2 brave souls who are taking this on in the life of their church and that. So, the costs are around £175, £200 a year for this. So, that's good to know. And with that, you get that basic package. Now, I'm going to also show you. Hi, Dexter, how are you?
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's no problem. That's why we've only just started, so you're okay.
Right.
They also do what is called Church Edit Plus. Now, this is slightly different because you get a much better suite with it all. And it's actually based on the number of members that you have at your church. So for the whole package, if you've got less than 50 members in your church, the whole package is £295, which is £100 more than the ones we've just looked at. But for this, you get 10 website editors anyway. You also get these other features that are on the right-hand side, the discussion forums, members-only pages, and rotas. So it is actually quite a good upgrade on their basic package. So again, that is something for churches to think about and to perhaps, look at perhaps, having. So that's Church Edit. But I did say that today we would also have perhaps a bit of a more in-depth look at Wix. That's because I still have my Wix login, whereas I don't actually have a Church Edit login at the moment. So I couldn't show you the editor that you get for that. But it's basically, a very easy to use. You work from the menu and it brings up everything for you. So very much like Wix does. Now, I will talk about Wix because as the Federation, I've created several websites of theirs to promote. This is a premium site, so this is a paid-for site for Cleves Hall. So this is where we have our student accommodation and the conference centre. This is how we market it to the people of Nottingham and to international students all over the world, and that's a very successful website. We also have the Resource Hub, which is, again, a paid-for website that is has all our links for different resources for different times of the year about being church, about being congregation, and all the rest of it. And again, that's a paid-for website. I have to say that these come in at half the price that Church Edit do because it's not so tailored to a faith community. The annual cost of the Resource Hub is somewhere around £120 a year. So it's a bit more financially viable to have one of their websites. And I also do the Lifelight, which is coming up in the beginning of next month, our Advent campaign. This is where I host all the reflections there. And this is an absolutely free site. I haven't actually got the press on here like I have the others because I haven't actually got 2021's up and ready yet. But, this is just a completely free one, so it's not got a bespoke URL to it. But you can do virtually all the functionality that I could on a paid-for site here on this free one. So that's pretty good to have that on there. Oh, Sarah, thank you very much for sharing that. Got a website. Oh, I missed what it was called, Sarah. It was somewhere in between, did you say?
Yeah, it is. It's somewhere in between. I set it up a few months ago and it looks quite similar to the one that you've got up there.
Right.
I think I paid £5 something a month for it.
Yeah.
And I've got it linked to Instagram and Facebook.
Brilliant. Excellent. Glad to hear that.
It's really good. I think the main thing to do as well when you've got one like that is to keep the blog updated. Because it's easy to go away and think, oh, that's my website done. But if you go in each week and update things and that, it keeps it a bit live.
That's the same for everything, for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You've got to maintain the job of, keeping on top of things so that others, come to it and think, oh, nothing's changed here from the last time. People always want to see new content and read new stories and read new blogs. So, yeah, as Sarah makes it a very important thing, do make sure that you don't just create and then think the job's done. It's an ongoing task.
Yeah.
So that's the Lifelight. So going back to Wix, when you get started, you can choose a template from. They've got hundreds of these about in all different themes and categories. So these are just some of them. And again, you may remember last time I mentioned about making sure graphics are front and center. Well, virtually all of their templates, they, encourage you to use good graphics that will catch people's eye when they click on your website. And this is actually the templates here for the faith section. They actually have a faith section. Look at all those pictures there. If we go back to Church Edit for a moment, those were the standard ones that they sort of were trying to entice you into using. And they're very, poor on graphics, really, compared with, Wix, where they try and make it a huge part of what the whole website is about. The thing, as I said last time, is make it your own. People don't want to go on your website and see a picture of Liverpool or London or elsewhere. They want to see where you are. And more than that, they want to see the people where you are. So make sure, with people's permission, you get your church members on there. If it's all possible, your children, if they've got permission to be part of these things, so that they have the opportunity to, be instantly recognizable as your place, so that people get that instant connection. And also make it nice and simple. So when people come to it, they know where to go to. The navigation's nice and easy. There's a nice welcome to it. And then people can easily navigate through the actual website. But as I said, it's a very easy system to navigate. This is the basic editor that you get with Wix. And this is the actual setting as it is. And you just highlight the boxes that you either want to edit or to put in, and you can click edit text and put it all in, and you can lay it out as you want. It gives you easy to put in things that go through. And on the left-hand side here are all the menu buttons to help you through. This 2 buttons at the top here, you are able to look at it as a desktop version or a laptop version. And also you can change the setting for the for mobile, so that it all displays nicely on a mobile, because as I said last time, more and more people are using their mobiles to search for the websites, and so it's so important to make sure that when you put it on mobile, it displays easily for people to read and follow through. And as I said, on this left-hand side here, you've got all the menu items here, and you simply click on these to actually add text, and you've got a variety of different styles of text. You can theme your text so you get all the same sort of fonts together on it. You've also got image buttons, so you can put all your pictures on. Buttons on, so you can actually have click-throughs on there. Galleries, decorative. Another one is you can put videos on there. So it's, again, got a very good single-use video player on there. So, again, you don't have to have a website that, you need to pay for storage for uploading your videos. If you upload your videos to YouTube, then that's free, because it simply pulls through the video onto your website. There's no storage costs for, people to actually view your videos or anything like that. And that's a very good feature for you to put any church videos or promotional videos on your website as well. So it makes it very easy to go through. And if you go onto the App Store, you can find lots and lots of different apps that will help you out with bookings or calendars or forums, chat. I wouldn't encourage you to go over the top on different apps to go on your website. It's really sort of, try and keep it as simple as possible, so that people have the easiest visit possible. But also do remember that some of the apps, whilst it says free plan available, then others it does actually say from $17 a month. So some of them actually have to be paid for. But as it says, the Wix blog, that's already installed. That's a free one that you can have on there. So, there are free apps that you can use, and they all enhance your viewing. The one slide I didn't do for Wix was the actual cost of it. As Sarah said, they have 3 different plans, may even be 4. From the very cheapest, so around £5 a month, up to, I think the next level then is £8 a month, and then up to £20 a month is for the sort of professional version. And you get slightly more enhanced features each time. But as Sarah's probably found out, the most basic package is often the one that will, work for most people. And Wix are dying to have your business, and they will often give you 50% off your first year as well. So it always comes up on your desk, on the your little desktop that you have with Wix. On the right-hand side, there'll be a box which says, for a limited period, 50% off. Well, that limited period often goes on for about 364 days of the year. So you'll be very unlucky to miss it. But it's well worth doing that, because they sometimes even throw in a free domain name for the first year. So again, that could save you another £10 or £12 as part of the package as well. So you're looking at a yearly cost there. If you manage to go on the most basic package of around £60 a year, the next level up is around £120 a year. Then it can rise to the sort of mid 200s, but then that's for all the sort of enhanced features that go with it, you know, for if you wanted to have a store on it and things like that. So Wix, it is very, very user-friendly and, you know, very easy to use. As I guess also, I don't want to be too biased about this, you know, there are other website creators out there like GoDaddy and Squarespace. They, I'm sure, would do a similar job to Wix. It's just I'm recommending them because it's something that I've always used. So please do look at Wix or Church Edit if you want to actually have a Christian platform for it. And as Sarah says, if she can do it, anybody can do it. So before we move on to the actual graphics and social media, are there any questions that anybody has got about website builders? And please do shout out, because at the moment I haven't got your pictures on my screen. I can't see any hands going up, but if there is something.
Neil, could I just come in on that, please?
Certainly.
Just to say, it suddenly occurred to me when you were talking about videos, a useful thing that I've found is I in the past have had 2 websites that can host videos, but if you post your videos straight up onto those websites, most of them, as far as I know, do not compress the video in any way at all. So it's a huge amount of traffic that you're putting on to people's Wi-Fi. Far better to put it onto YouTube where they compress it right down, and it's a far smaller file that has to be downloaded to the user's phone or laptop or whatever. I have found if you load the video direct into the website, even if you can, it can be extremely glitchy, whereas with YouTube it isn't at all.
Right, thank you.
Excellent, thanks, Mike. And also, before we move on from Mike, he emailed me after our last session to say that following that, he created a website all of his own. So what did you use that for, Mike?
Sorry, I'd muted myself again.
That's okay.
Yeah, we were already in discussions with the church and about having a website, and it was particularly initially to have a means of putting or giving people access to videos and audio recordings of services. People liked that, so we very quickly developed it. I use Weebly. Now, the only reason I use Weebly is because I've been using it for 10 years now, and therefore I'm very familiar with it. I have to say, if I was starting again, I would almost certainly use Wix. Weebly is good and easy to use, but Wix is even more flexible. And if you need to have it, Wix can put a database of all sorts of information behind the scenes that people can call up, whereas you can't do that with Weebly. I know Weebly well, so the basic website I was able to get up and running in about an hour. And then when we started doing the full 9 yards of who's who, what would happen if, if you came to church, what can you expect, what services we have and things like that. I suppose that the basic one took me about half a day to get up and running. We're using a pro site mainly because we want to host video there, and we want features like being able to put church meeting minutes up there, which obviously we don't want the whole world to see. And therefore you need to have a password control page to do that.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. So that's Mike and Sarah who both created their own websites. I'm hoping to be able to shout house in a bingo style call in a moment that you've all created them before long. So this is really good at the moment going this way. Any other questions on website creation? Okay, well, we're going to move on to looking at tools for building again. Last time I mentioned about all the posts that you really need to, as Sarah said, you need to keep communicating with people, and on social media especially, this is a thing. Whereas with a website, it's usually fixed and constant. On social media, you only get the in-the-moment stuff. So with Twitter, it's there and then as it's posted. What appears on your Facebook timeline is what's current. So you only get to see these sorts of things unless you scroll. And so it's important to look at the different posts. And we talked last time about making sure that we got the right balance of posts as well, so that we weren't oversubscribing on our story at church or on spiritual things or engaging people. So you've got to have that right balance as well. But we also need somewhere to actually build these posts as well. So there are many different software packages, that websites that will help you to do this. My go-to one is Canva, C-A-N-V-A. And it for me is a wonderful way. They offer 3 packages. There's the completely free package. There's the not quite so free package. And then there's the definitely not free package. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. And, you know, the free package is an absolute brilliant whiz tool that you'll create the most wonderful, not only social media posts, you could do posters for your church, you could even do, flyers for your church magazine, leaflets, anything like that you can create on Canva. It is really wonderful. But there are these other ones there about as well that people can use. And as I was saying last time, you want to create something that people will catch their eye and will look professional and look good. And that's what these, graphic builders do. They make something look really professional and really good and really eye-catching and draw people in. And that's what we want to make sure we do when we're posting on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the other social media sites that we use. Another thing that we also want to do is, I will talk forever always about branding, about how we want to carry the same branding across all our different outputs. For instance, for those of you who aren't unaware at the moment, Walter Riggins is preparing for the Spring School in March of next year. A wonderful opportunity for people to come together and have an event that's called Is Christian Nonconformity a Thing of the Past? And that's their advertising there on our website. And it's very important that when you've got it in one place, here's our Facebook page, it's there as the banner on there as well. And here's our Twitter page. It's even the banner that's on there. So having social media, it's good having a post, but it's good to have that post that's then across all parts of your social media, your website, your internet presence. So, it's good to make sure that you can get that branding out there so people can see it as much as possible. So this is Canva. It's a very simple, it's just a website. You just put canva.com into your web browser and it comes up with this page. You create your own account and it keeps on here all the designs you've ever created, but then it helps you to create your own designs as well. And I said that there were so many different categories that you could make. You can do presentations, so you can do it for PowerPoint. You can do social media, so here's Instagram posts. You can create logos, posters, flyers, all sorts of things. You can even do videos on here now as well as office products as well. And you can also do custom size graphics as well, which is helpful for our CF website because they're not sort of standard sized images that we have on our website. So it's good to be able to do custom size ones ourselves and do that. So I clicked on here to do an Instagram post, and that's 800 by 800. So that's a simple square one. And what you get when you say create a design is you get this is where you're going to actually create the design here. But when you do that, you also get given lots and lots of different templates that you can actually use. So if you simply do a search into the templates for the sort of thing you're doing, so if you were doing a Bible study or if you were doing a coffee morning, you just put those in there and they will give you some idea for it, some inspiration. But of course, you don't have to use that. You can start from scratch and create your own design if you wanted to do. I simply put faith into the template thing there, and it came up with a whole swathe of these different ones that are on here, where it just gives a simple design. It's already done the background, done a bit of layering for you, and then the text on there. Now, I mentioned to you that there are 3 different levels of costings on here. The completely free one, you can only use templates that come up and say at the side here, it would say free. Now, this one here says Pro, so you actually have to have the full package, which does cost £99 a year. So it is quite an outlay. But I would have to say, if you're going to be doing designs week in, week out, it's well worth paying that much to get the features like these professional images and graphics. You only get a certain number of the graphics that you can put on there and photos. And some of the fonts as well, things like that. But another way to do it, so you could go on here and add different graphics. Say you wanted to just add this one church onto there. A way of doing it is you can be charged per picture that you create, per image that you create. So say that I've just created that background bit with the text and the bush on it and just added that church. The church may cost me 70 pence as part of their cost for it. And I would simply pay a one-off price for that. It does it when it says download. It says, pay this amount. And that's it, So if you only occasionally want to use elements that they charge for, then you can do it as a one-off charge. So if you're not going to use £10 worth of graphics a month, then this is a simple way of just using it from time to time to get really, really good graphics, because most of these ones that are here on the left-hand side, these are pro images. The free ones are very much the basic ones that you get, probably like this outline one here. So, you do get more variety with the pro package. And, it is worth that a little bit more. But as I say, you simply go into Elements and put in what you want to find, and you can find graphics or photos, even videos about this. You can upload your own images. You can use different texts and in different styles to go on there, background and logos, and plenty more besides. And when you come down to download it at the end, you can do it in a variety of different formats. So you've got the 2 picture qualities there, PNG and JPEG. Then you can also do it in PDF, again, either in standard if it's only going to go on your website, or PDF print, which is a bit better quality if you're going to print it off and actually use it. And then the more animated type of things at the bottom as well, you can download these files as to your computer. And also you can, again, Mike was talking about sometimes the need to compress files, because sometimes these graphic images come in at a huge size in megabytes. So you can actually compress the files to make them smaller. So again, they are easier to upload to websites or wherever. And also on Canva, you can save time by scheduling these posts to go out on your Facebook timeline. So, it's a very handy feature that's there as well. And, before we go to coffee time, you can also have it set up to work in teams as well, so that, you don't have to just do it yourself. You can add other members of your church to it by their email addresses, and they set up their accounts. And if you need to sort of say, I've designed this poster, what do you think of it? They can view it before you actually publish it and put it up on a website or print it off as a leaflet. So again, a very handy feature of Canva is that you can create these teams and, you know, put them together as part of a joint output. So that's the second side of things, looking at building social media posts. I would always recommend doing something like that rather than using Publisher or other, you know, use it sort of things. These ones now are so much more professional than that, you know, I can't recommend them enough. They produce such good quality images that really that's the way that we should be going. So that's the second part that we've come to the end of. Are there any questions on graphics, on building them, or any other system that anybody else uses that they would recommend? Mike?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm really, really interested in Canva. I've not come across it before, but I can spend hours designing posters, looking for appropriate copyright-free images, fiddling around with text and so on and so forth. This looks absolutely brilliant, and I shall certainly be giving it a very close look very soon. So thanks for drawing that to our attention.
No problem. And again, I mean, I mentioned that, you know, you pay for images that are very good photographs and all the rest of it. Again, using this in combination with somewhere like Pixabay or Pexels, which provide a copyright-free images, photographs, which are of the most high caliber, you know, you can upload those into Canva and use them as images and all the rest of it. You know, and again, that complements the professional look of it, combining different sources to provide your output. So yeah.
Neil, as well as putting the like the church on, can you change with that image? Change the text whenever you want as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah. So
you could have that going for a few months or every other month or whatever. So
indeed.
Yeah.
And you can use it with the text. You can use all sorts of different features, you know, effects on it to provide shadow and bend it and all the rest of it. So it's a very, very powerful suite of things. You can put as much text on as you want. That the he gives power bit is the headline text. The idea is what they would call the subtitle text. Yeah. They also do a paragraph style as well for, you know, putting more text on as well if you're going to, you know, put more on there as well. So you can manipulate text in a quite wonderful way as well.
Yeah, good.
I always just use Word or Microsoft to do mine, and I take my own photographs when I'm out on my bike and things like that, and I use my own photographs. That gets me over the copyright. But I did like the bit where you said about scheduling the posts, because that's really good if you're in an event once a week or something like that, and you can schedule it to go up once a week to remind people. That's something really useful, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I would encourage you, Sarah, to try and you know use something like this. In the past, I've used Word and Publisher, but sometimes using the when you put an image on, you have to use that layout button, you know, layout at the side or at the top. And for me, sometimes the image just has a life of its own. It goes wherever it wants to, never mind where you want it to be. So, you know, this is very powerful. Where you want the image stays. You can, one of the elements that's on here, again, going back to this button here, one of the elements you get is a grid layout. So say you want to put 6 different pictures on here, it'll come up with a different combination of how those images will be laid out, either in equal dimensions or some bigger than others. And you then just drop your photo onto them. It automatically sizes it for you and all the rest of it, or you can crop it yourself. And it looks really, really good. So, you know, it's so easy to do. Yeah,
You can upload your own photographs onto it.
you can, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good then.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
no problem. Okay, any more questions? Steph?
Hi, first of all, sorry for being late. I do apologize.
No problem.
On this Canva, if you purchase an image, you said like 70p or whatever it is that a once only use, or can you use it multiple times once you've paid for it?
It is a once only use, because you're not actually paying for the image as such. You're paying for the finished post that you've done. So you're importing the church is the graphic. Let's call it that, a graphic. You're paying you're using that graphic, but what you're paying for at the end of the day is the image that you've created. So yeah, if you were to use that the following week, it would cost you another 70p, a pound, whatever it is that they charge per item.
So if you're going to use this kind of program a lot and make a lot of different images, probably the £100 a year is actually cost effective.
Oh, it is very, very cost effective. Yes, it is annoying. I was on the free version for a number of years before I actually took out the paid version, and it's so annoying where you see an image and think, oh, that's a fantastic one, only to roll over it for it to say pro on. And, you know, you have to either skip over that looking for another free one or whatever. So, yeah, it is handy to, you know, be able to sort of think, while I'm on it this time, everything I want, I can use. So, yeah, if you go, it's £10.99 a month, or if you pay the whole lot up in one go, it's £99. So it saves you around, you know, £20 if you pay it in one go, but probably worth it. Okay, thanks, Steph. Any other questions?
Can I just make a comment?
Yeah, certainly.
Just because I was at the last one we did, Haymill CC has just signed up for Church Edit today.
Oh, brilliant.
And we're going to get an email and our 30-day trial, and then we're going to go with them to do. And Sarah, who you can see there, is our online pastor.
Yeah.
From up north of the border. And she's going to, with my support, design the website.
Excellent. Yeah, that was one thing I forgot to mention, actually, is that Church Edit always do a 30-day trial, so you can actually see what the system's like before you shell out on it. And yeah, it is a very good way of them enticing you into sort of, you know, to use it. But yeah, again, I was saying that I helped Newcastle create their website with them, and yeah, I can't say that they will go the extra yard to help you out any problems and that. So yeah, brilliant.
They're also having a major upgrade next week with lots more templates and also how-to little videos on how to set up the website. So they're doing a major overhaul, I think, for the first one for about 3 years. So that's why I decided to get on now. And then when the upgrade comes, we can just use that as well. So
yeah, they have a huge number of tutorials on there, video tutorials. And through lockdown and still continuing, they've been doing a number of webinars where you can sort of watch them as they do a similar session to this. And you can, it's very interactive. So, yeah, they're very hands-on, Church Edit, from your neck of the woods as well, up in Solihull. So, yeah, very, very good company. Okay, any other questions? Well, I suggest we just take 2 minutes just to stretch our legs, have a coffee, and get ourselves a drink. And then we'll come back for the second part of our presentation this afternoon. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Right. Let me just outline. Let me go back on here. Where we're going next with our conversation. As I say, we've ticked the box of tools for building with websites and social media. Next, we're actually going on to podcasting, and I'll explain why in a minute. First of all, I just wanted to say something about the use of the internet. And I always like to produce a good little pie chart. This comes off the Statistica.com website. And it shows the use of the internet worldwide in age groups. So on the right-hand side, you will see 18 to 24-year-olds and 25 to 34-year-olds. They make up 50% of all the users on the internet are in that age group there. So it's a terrific amount. And then the other groups make smaller and smaller parts of the pie chart. And the reason why I mention this is because we need to recognize that as different age groups use the internet, they use it in significantly different ways.
Yeah.
And this Target Internet website actually produced an article which said how different age groups are using social media. Now, this is important for the ways that we want to communicate with them. So if your congregation are mainly of one age group, then there's no point using a platform that those people aren't generally on. So, for instance, part of their report said, the overwhelming majority of social users over the age of 65 solely use Facebook. Now, I was going to say, if your congregation at church is over 65, well, I think that's most of us, isn't it? Well, that's perhaps a bit of a generalization, but many churches these days are made up of people who are in that age group over 65. And if you want to communicate with them, you will find that a good number of them are on Facebook because it's a good way for them to keep in touch with their family and all the rest of it like that. And you can keep in touch with them on through your church Facebook as well. So over 65s, forget trying to get hold of them via Twitter. Facebook is the way to go. But if you move to the 50 to 64-year-old group, you'll then begin to find that they are using also LinkedIn and Instagram and other feeds like that. As it stands, around 65% of people in this age group have a Facebook account, but also have a couple of others as well. Then as you come down younger, it also, find that they use it also in different ways as well. Perhaps the most striking feature of those aged 30 to 49 is that they're most likely to get their news from social media. Now, this is something that happened. My son often comes on to me and said, have you seen what's trending on Twitter? And he will tell me a bit of news that's happened. Either somebody famous has died or something like that. And he's found out that news via Twitter because that he doesn't bother with a newspaper. He doesn't bother turning on the TV to watch the news. He doesn't even go on the BBC website. He uses social media to find out what things are happening in the world, what's trending at the moment. And many young people actually do that as well. And then the youngest age group completely, the age group from 18 through to 30, they are the ones who use virtually every platform that's out there. They use Instagram a lot, they use Facebook, they use Snapchat, they use TikTok and all these different things. So if you're trying to get a message out there, you're more than certain that you will always hit that younger generation, but you have to make sure that you spread your net widely to communicate with people in different generations. So you might have thought that you were just coming on here to see how to build a website. Well, you must remember also that, it's important perhaps to have a presence on YouTube where you can put all your church services or promotional videos or things like that. Just as it's important to have your Facebook, your Twitter, your Pinterest, you don't have to have all of these, but recognize that these are different ways of communicating the message. So if you take anything out of this seminar that we've been holding over 2 sessions, it is that there is no one way to communicate the church's message, but we have to try and use as many different avenues as possible with the capabilities that we've got, whether that's a website, whether it's social media, whatever way possible to actually get out there and share our message. Now, another way of sharing that message is by doing a podcast. And Mike said that he was very much into this and offered to share something about this. And the reason why I decided to take him up on it was the figures of people that regularly listen to a podcast. In 2017, 4 years ago, there were nearly 9 million people who said that they regularly, once a week, something like that, listen to a podcast of one sort or another. In 2021, that figure is almost estimated to have doubled, up to nearly 17 million people regularly listening to a podcast. Now, sometimes that's just a recording of a, like a radio program that's gone out and people have missed it. The vast majority are made for internet listening, so they can be, podcasts from church or of church, not just of church services. So this just shows that there is a widening market here, and this is perhaps something that churches could use and be effective in their local community as well as wider abroad as well. So I want to hand over to Mike to share some slides with us on this. Mike's going to give you the running commentary, and he's going to say hit it, and I'll move on to the next slide. So that's the way we're working this. So thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil. Just to give you a bit of background, folks, I've been involved in, let's just call it audio communication, for almost 50 years now, starting off with the podcast of their day, which were cassette ministries, and moving on through in all sorts of various other different platforms and so on. I've been podcasting and helping other people podcast for, probably about 8 to 10 years now, I guess, in one form or another. Some of those podcasts have been 5 minutes long and monthly. Others have been 15 minutes long and are weekly, and all sorts of things in between. So that's where I'm coming from. But the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, what is a podcast? Because if you look on the internet to find out what's the definition of a podcast, if you talk to people about what is a podcast, you get all sorts of different answers about whether it's got video in there or not, about whether it's just a one-off, and so on, so forth. So next slide, please. So for today, this is the generally accepted view of what a podcast is. It's a means of presenting an audio program, whatever that program is, usually part of a series via the internet. In other words, you're using the internet as the means of delivering this. Whether you put this into a website and people can find it there, or whether it's just on a hosting site and people can go there, find your podcast and pull it down and listen to it on their phone or however. I've put the word program in inverted commas because the program can be all sorts of things. It could be just one person talking. I know of a Christian minister who, when lockdown started, he started a daily podcast, and he just talked about the Psalms. So day 1 was Psalm 1, day 2 was Psalm 2, right the way through to Psalm 150. So that was his series. I know somewhere else where their podcast consists of someone in the church interviewing someone associated with the church or linked with the church about something that they've done recently, something that's a specific interest. That's monthly, and it's normally about 5 to 6 minutes. So they can be all sorts of things. So moving on now, please, Neil. What is the most important thing to think about when you're thinking of having a podcast? If you've got a bright idea, I'd suggest you may need to pause and think, because the most important aspect is content, content, content. How are you going to form it? How long is it going to be? Who's going to do it? Is it just you? Is it going to be other people? Is it not going to be you at all? Are you going to ask somebody else to do it? And what form is it going to take? I'm providing technical assistance to some people at the moment who started a podcast about a year ago. And they started off with a very specific remit that they wanted to fulfill and a specific way of delivering that content. Now, a year on, they've suddenly realized they've run out of things to say. And so they're quite wisely drawing stumps on that podcast while they have a think about how do they want to go forward from here. So, and when I first started, the very first program I did in cassette ministry, I did my first program and off it went to be duplicated. And I suddenly realized I'd used all the material that I could ever think of in one program. And this was going to be a monthly program. So bright ideas are brilliant, but they need to be grounded and rooted. So that's the most important thing. What are you going to do? How are you going to say it? Who's going to be involved in it? Be realistic about expectations. Don't make it open-ended. If you think, well, actually, we've probably only got enough here for 6 programs, start off by saying this is going to be a 6-program series about. Next one, please. Now, the most important technical aspect that I have discovered, particularly during lockdown, when I've been receiving material from all sorts of people, most of whom I've never met, they just send me the material by email. The most important thing is where you make the recording. Because if it sounds as though someone's shouting down a drain pipe, or if someone's in a very echoey bathroom, or a huge church hall or something like that, it is very, very hard to listen to. What I say to people is the traditional church study, which is book-lined and probably has an easy chair or two in there, as well as the desk, is brilliant because that cuts down on the reverberation. Another good place, remember this is sound only, so it doesn't matter where you are particularly, is a bedroom. Lots and lots of self-furnishings there. Having said that, one of the people that I work with a lot, she has found that the best place to get a recording for her is in her bathroom, because that is a combination of good acoustics and no lorries thundering past outside. That's the other thing you've got to be careful of, is not to have loads of noises off. So those are my 2 top tips. Content, 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 and think about where you're going to make the recording. Next one, please, Neil. So how would I start? The good news is it doesn't have to be complicated at all. The vast majority of material that I receive is recorded on some phone, some form of phone, be it an iPhone or an Android phone. Some people use a connected speaker, like a headset, which I'm wearing at the moment. Other people just carefully place the phone, perhaps on the arm of an armchair in which they're sitting, and that can pick it up fine. So you don't have to have a lot of complicated equipment, particularly if it's just you doing it. Next one, please, Neil. So the app that I would suggest, voice memos on iPhone, that is standard on all the iPhones I know, and that produces perfectly acceptable recordings as long as you're in a good recording environment straight out the box. And if you're on voice recorder, the one I would recommend, sorry, if you're on an Android phone, the one I would recommend is one called Voice Recorder, and you can find that in Play Store like you would find any other app that you want to use. Next one, please, Neil. Now, it may be that you want to do some interviews and something like this. Again, one of the organizations I work with, they like to do a lot of interviews. They're using an iPhone and this little device, the JK Mic J700, which is 2 clip-on microphones that you connect via a little switch box and connectors, and that just connects direct into your iPhone. Depending on the model of the iPhone, you may need a lightning adapter, but as you know, those are not very expensive. The good news is this JK Mic J700, I looked it up this week, you can get it from Amazon for £20 or thereabouts, and that produces perfectly acceptable results, keeping it nice and simple. If you want to move on a bit, next slide, please. You get a USB microphone. All this means is that it is a microphone of, in this case, professional recording quality that you connect direct to your computer and you record straight into your computer. The one I've referred to here costs £90. You may think that's a bit pricey. Well, yeah, maybe it is, but it's a proven good quality one. You can get them a lot cheaper than this. For instance, I know someone who, when we started doing stuff during lockdown, he said to me, I need to get a USB microphone today. Well, the only option was to point him at Argos, and he went into his local Argos and bought one, and I think he paid 30-ish, 35-ish pounds for it, and that is producing good quality recordings. But if you look up USB microphones on the internet, you'll find dozens and dozens and dozens of them. Next slide, please, Neil. But of course, once you've connected your microphone, you need to record in some way. You need some appropriate recording software. Loads and loads and loads of it about. I generally recommend Audacity. It's the granddaddy of these. The good news is that it's free, very widely used. I found it rock solid. And I know lots and lots of people who use Audacity. So that's what I would suggest. Next slide, please. Now we're getting a bit more adventurous. Suppose you want to have 3 or 4 people sitting around a table having a discussion. Well, then you need to move on to a specialist podcast recorder, and you're going to need microphones as well for this, not USB microphones, normal sort of microphones. And moving across left to right on the screen there, all of these, by the way, record straight onto SD card, so you don't need to hook them up to a computer to make your recording. They're just going across the page there in order of sophistication, really. The Zoom PodTrack on the left there, you can record up to 4 people. They can each have their own headphones that they can adjust the volume of. You can also have predetermined little jingles that you push the button and you get cheering or silly noises or whatever that you can insert into your podcast. And all of them, and this is a useful feature for many people, they have the means of connecting a mobile phone direct to them, so you can take contributions from someone who's on the phone, and they'll sound as though they're live with you wherever you're making the recording. I'm not going to go through all of these now, but you can see, if you look at the PodTrack P8, you can see 9 little bluish white buttons there, and on the one on the far right, the Rode Procaster, you can see 8 buttons there. Those are the ones you hit to play in the silly pieces of music or applause or anything like that. So you sit down and you make your recording for your podcast. What happens next? Well, we look at our next slide, please. You've got to edit it, or unless you're extremely skillful and you can do the whole thing straight off without any ums, ers, and oh, hang on, I said that not quite right, didn't I? I better do that again. The good news is that you can edit these things out in Audacity. Basically, on the recording, you say, that's the start of where I want to take something out. That's the end of where I want to take something out. Click, it's gone. And then you say, oh, that didn't sound quite right. You have the wonderful undo function. So you can practice, practice, practice until you get it right. And you end up with your finished, polished recording that you're ready to give to the world. How do you do that? Next slide, please. How can I host my recording? In other words, it's all very well you making a recording. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to send people an email saying, please listen to this recording here? You need to host it somewhere. Next slide, please. So you can put it directly on your website, and we've been talking about that already this afternoon. You can put it directly on your website. We use Weebly Pro for our church website, and we use this for service recordings. It's extremely easy to put a podcast or any other sort of recording onto a Weebly Pro, as it undoubtedly is on many other sites that have this facility. Basically, you drag and drop an icon over, and then when you click on the icon, it says upload your audio. You upload your audio from your computer and job done. Can I just sort of pause at this point and say, oh no, we'll just go on to the next one before I do my little diversion. Another way of doing it is to host it on a third-party hosting website. Some of these have free facilities, but the free facilities are limited. You get much more flexibility if you pay a bit of money. And I've just put 3 here, but there are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of these hosting sites for podcasts. Now, you may choose to use one of these if your podcast is not aimed specifically at a Christian audience. For instance, I know 2 ministers, Christian ministers, who host what's a very popular website, which is called Two Vicars in the Pub. And basically, before lockdown, they actually used to physically sit in a pub, but these days it's done over the internet via Zoom or something like that. And they have, the deal is they each have to have a drink they've never tried before, be it soft drink or a drink of another nature. And then they talk about aspects of the Christian faith. Is Jesus that important? Do you have to believe Jesus is the Son of God to be a Christian? Isn't the Bible all rubbish? Isn't it all fairy tales? And they sit and talk about this. It's very much an apologetics podcast. They have consciously hosted that in one of the commercial sites because, as Neil has pointed out, the number of people listening to podcasts these days is phenomenal. And people will go on to some of these sites and just search for something that takes their fancy. So it's you know, what is best for the program you're producing. I just want to, we'll leave this slide up, please, Neil, but I just want to say a little bit at this point about editing. I've said edit on your PC. You could, if you want to, edit on your iPad or your other form of tablet. Now, I've tried that once or twice and I find it extremely difficult and fiddly. I'm very much at home with the mouse and the keyboard and my shortcut keys. If you think you can do it, good luck to you. Get on with it. I wish you well, as they say. I'm almost done, but as I close, next slide, please. Do remember copyright You may want to make your podcast as attractive as possible, and therefore you may want to put some music in there. Now, once you start doing that, you can be in very, very complicated territory. And I'm not going to go into how you get round this afternoon, apart from to point out a piece of recorded music that you may have on a CD or you found on Amazon Music or Apple Music can have up to 3 or 4 different aspects of copyright associated with it. So you can't just say, oh, it's Christian, I'm sure it'll be all right. You have to do it properly. And something I discovered to my surprise just a few weeks ago, many Bible versions are subject to copyright restrictions once they are used outside of a church service context. So even using your favorite version of the Bible in a podcast, you could be in tricky waters with copyright. NIV is not subject to copyright under the terms of what I would regard as podcasting. So if you use NIV, you're okay. And you may think, well, we've got a CCLI license. That'll see us right. Unfortunately, it doesn't, not for podcasting. For streaming or putting up pre-recorded church services, you're fine. It doesn't cover you for podcast type applications. And my final slide. This has been a right gallop. If you want to say to me, you glossed over or you didn't touch on, do get in touch with me, please. That's my email address. Please note the C in the middle. Mike Stranks, without a C, is very understanding, but he is getting a bit fed up of receiving my emails. And about once a week, I get one from him saying, is this another one meant for you? So I'll leave that with you. I think we're going into a question time. I'm very, very happy. That's been a right gallop, but I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You are right. We're going straight into the questions session. So if you've got any questions on podcasting that you'd like to ask Mike, please do straight off. Thank you very much for doing that, Mike. It's been an eye-opener for me as for any others. I put my disclaimer at the start saying that, you know, I'm very grateful to other sources for my knowledge and the rest of it. And that's very true of podcasting. So thank you very much for doing that, Mike. So, yeah, any questions?
On the Bible version, so I was involved in Christian Bookshop for 40 years and know the whole minefield about copyright. NIV used to be, but is there a list of actual versions which are not automatically usable?
I happened to sort of stumble across this the other day. It doesn't concern me too much because where I'm or where other people are using versions other than NIV, they have their own licenses because they're classified as broadcasters, and therefore have their own licenses. So I've not gone into this in any detail, but I did come across this reference the other day to be careful how you use versions of the Bible. Many are copyright, although the NIV does basically give you exemptions if it's being used in a Christian context.
That's right. Yes.
And similarly, if you quote from works of literature, you're supposed to get copyright clearance to do that as well. So it can be an absolute minefield.
Are CCL looking into this at all?
I've no idea. I mean, CCLI did do a huge catch-up exercise when lockdown started. And they went from basically, no, you can't do this, to making two sets of arrangements following hard on the heels of each other, so that we are now covered for streaming if we've got the appropriate CCLI licenses. Whether they're doing anything else, I really don't know.
Might be announced at the resources next week.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
I was just thinking, Neil, you know, when you put the slide up with the demographics of the different churches, the church that I work in up here in Scotland is definitely on the older end of the scale. And I could quite see them listening to a podcast, even if they didn't go on Facebook and things like that. I can quite see them making use of podcasts. The United Reformed Church up here in Scotland is so similar to the Congregational in England. I go to a United Reformed Church up here, and they do a daily podcast. They do a daily Bible reading. And I've been merrily recording it and sending off my recording to them. And I hadn't actually bothered to listen, but I've just looked one up and it happened to be today's. And it's me speaking on it. So it does work really well, especially for older members of the congregation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, used creatively, let me call it radio for the sake of argument now, is an extremely powerful medium, because the people are painting their own pictures in their mind. They are not taking images from the television. And so storytelling can be hugely powerful, because people are building the scenario in their own subconscious. Listening to someone being interviewed can be very powerful as well. So it doesn't have to be, a podcast doesn't have to be just sitting there, someone talking. There's all sorts of ways that you can do it.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's good for people that are partially sighted in that as well. It's good for them to be able to listen to it, isn't it? So it makes it more inclusive as well.
Yeah, that's actually how I started. I mean, we wouldn't dream of calling it this these days, but the first organization I worked with was actually called Bath Tapes for the Handicapped and Blind. And that was a cassette ministry to people who were shut in or had visual impairments. As I say, that was 50 years ago, and we wouldn't dream of referring to people in that way now. But
are you from Bath, Mike?
Pardon?
Are you from Bath?
I am from Bath, yes,
so
originally. Oh,
so
right.
It's a small world, isn't it?
And I think that's another area, isn't it, Mike, of seeing the whole people who are shut in, whatever their situation. It's an area that we, as a fellowships, we have not actually tapped into, have we?
No, I think in my experience, one of the very positive things that's come out of lockdown is many churches, and the church I go to is one of those, who've said, hang on, we've been providing all these facilities for people during lockdown, but some of the people who've benefited from that couldn't come to church anyway.
Oh, quite.
Are we just going to walk away from them now? So how are we going to continue to provide them with some sort of facility to keep them in touch with the church? And in fact, it was off the back of that we ended up with our website, because we wanted to continue providing services, but not necessarily through Zoom. And so we're now doing recordings of services that we now host on our website. So it is a very important ministry, and something I think we mustn't lose sight of. You know, the benefits that have accrued through lockdown. For instance, I know that there were people listening to recordings of services from their local church who had never, ever been to the church apart from for a funeral. It gives them a slight sense of distance and not having to be involved, you know, and not people going to grab them, you know. I'm sure you know this, the saying that many people treat the church like they treat a helicopter. They're very cautious because they don't want to get too near the rotors. And there's that element, isn't there? There people are interested in what we've got to say, but they're not necessarily that interested in, initially anyway, being part of our community. And using these sort of third party ways of communicating can be a very powerful way of keeping in touch with people.
Yeah, and it's actually think what I was saying, Philip was saying, thinking outside the box of how we communicate.
Yeah, I mean, I found it very interesting. I think it was in our webinar last time, please correct me if I'm wrong, where people were saying how they distribute their sermons beforehand, and then in the service there's a bit of a discussion about it. And I think that's something that we could develop, either video or audio wise, to you know, perhaps take a Bible passage that people think they know inside out, back to front, and say, hang on a minute, what was Jesus really saying here? Or what was the prophet really saying here? Is it what we think it was?
Andrew
anyway, I feel a soapbox coming on, so I'll shut up.
I was just going to say, Mike, Andrew does that from Shurston down in Wiltshire. He does a YouTube one. And we've had people from Australia and Cornwall, and I join in quite often as well. And it turns into much more of a discussion. It's really good because people don't feel so embarrassed to talk.
No,
if they're not there in person.
I mean, we're moving off of the narrow definition of podcasting now, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm involved in a technical recording live stream where the person is presenting on a particular topic, and he will then say, do the rest of you have any thoughts on this? And it's a live stream on YouTube, and you can type your text answers in, and they're all coming up at the side of the screen next to the video of him demonstrating whatever he's demoing, and so it can be interactive without having to have the high flown thing of a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, brilliant.
I like that phrase that somebody used a moment ago, thinking outside the box. And that's very much what we want to do, because there's no set sort of pattern for this, but it involves all of us, you know, being challenged about how we go about this. So thank you for all those questions there for Mike, or comments.
One more question, Neil, please.
For Mike or General?
For Mike, I think, but it's
okay.
Outside of the podcasting. We do our Bible study on Friday mornings on using my PC, but I record it on my phone so that I would upload it on the WhatsApp groups, and then people who could not make it to the Zoom meeting would listen to it and then come back to us, share their thoughts. So do you have any advice on how to improve the recording? Like you mentioned using USB mic or voice recorder mics or Audacity. So how can we improve that facility?
Okay. I'm going to be very direct and personal here now.
Okay.
I wouldn't record it in the room I can see you currently sitting in.
No, I don't do it here. I do it
right. That to me is the most important thing, is to find a room with a nice dead acoustic. In other words, it's not too reverberant, and it's that generally means a smaller room with lots of soft furnishings. if you're just going straight into the phone, where's my phone? So for instance, it's quite acceptable. I can't see myself here, but can you see how I'm holding the phone?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so it's quite acceptable just to do it like that, just to chat away. I mean, I'm projecting slightly now, but the other thing, I mean, we're getting into sort of training areas a bit here now. But what I always say to people, don't think of all the people who are listening to you. Talk to one person. Visualize one person sitting in an armchair, perhaps someone you know will be listening, and talk as if you were sat in an armchair the other side of the fireplace to them, and just chat away. So forget sermonizing, just have a conversation with them. I don't know if your Bible study, if you're reading from a script, or if you're just doing it live, as it were. But if you're a preacher, and I say this as a preacher, you have to be disciplined to do this sort of thing in a different style to how you would preach.
Yeah.
It needs to be more intimate. It needs to be more close. If I can, you're not projecting out to someone. You're just conversing with someone. But the key thing I would say is be very, very careful of where you record, because as the psalm has it, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and our ears and our brains can decode all sorts of rubbish that that is coming at them and make sense of it. When you're when you're recording, the recorder's not able to do that, and it presents it with all the echo too far off the mic, the lorries thundering past outside, the jetliner screaming overhead, and so on. So it's just being very, very careful about the quality of the recording. And I don't mean technical quality. I mean the sound that's actually being picked up by the microphone.
Brilliant.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I have to go to do a school run. Thank you all. Thank you, Neil. And
no
thank
problem.
you, Mike. That was really helpful. Appreciate. Take
No
care.
problem. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, the other thing I would also add to that, Jonas, that I'm saying, it's always good to be able to use Audacity to sharpen up recordings. So for instance, you say you have it actually over Zoom. Do you have that on your laptop?
On my laptop, and then I put my phone on the side. I'm only doing this to the group.
Yeah.
Just the group.
And then you record it on your phone. Yeah.
Simultaneously, yes.
Yeah. Well, what I would do is I would then take that recording off my phone, send it to my laptop to Audacity, and on Audacity you can adjust the levels. So if someone is, the first thing you can do is you can amplify everything so it comes up to a set level. But then say, someone was very quiet, you can actually highlight their small section of it and just amplify them to make it, easier to hear. You can even go to the extremes of actually getting rid of background noise. It's very clever, Audacity, that you can highlight the area and pick out the noise and then apply that to the whole of your recording, and it cleans it up for you. So it just makes it just that little bit easier to listen to and all the rest of it. So if you can get out on Audacity, and again, watch the tutorials that come with it, because they're really helpful, that, point you in the right direction of what to do and how to do it. Yeah, it is really good, and it would just improve recordings for you to then share on with other, members who haven't been able to make it.
All right.
Yeah, good question. Thank you very much, Jonas. Any other questions, either about podcasting or recording, or about anything to do with websites or
I've got one about my wife is going to share her story at the end of the month, and a friend of hers writes a lot of music, and she's sent one of her songs on a WhatsApp to her. Have you had the experience of using someone else's recording of their music, which she wants to use within this story that she's telling at the end of the month?
How's she doing
the church?
All right.
Yeah, this is she's done it down in Clacton. We're in Langenhoe, albeit it's Holsbury when she does it, but she wants to use it in the message she's going to give about her story. So is there any experience, does that get, should we usually be in Audacity or something like that for picking it up, or?
Shall I come in here, Neil?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got two issues here, or two aspects, I should say, not issues. Yeah. The first is getting as good a recording as you can.
Yeah.
And that's where you may want to do some editing or whatnot. The other thing is, how are you going to play that back? Is this context in a service that this is going to be used?
Yeah, it's using a television which has got an HDMI linked to a laptop.
Okay, because I guess what you're going to do is, are you going to play it through the church sound system?
Yeah, that was the idea. Particularly through television. So we haven't got a sound system as such set up yet at Holsbury. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yes, probably the simplest way of doing that then would, it depends very much on the television, and I think maybe this is something better. I'd be very happy if you want to send me details of your setup. I could then advise you on connect this to this and this to this and so on.
Yeah, that'd be great. Very much. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, I could be opening some floodgates here, but I'll take the risk. If you want to send me the recording as you have it, I'll have a listen and see if I can clean it up a bit.
Yeah.
If it needs it, because I mean, I've talked about Audacity here, but because I'm doing this week in, week out, I have some very sophisticated audio polishing tools, which Audacity is free. The ones I use most certainly aren't. But I'd be very happy to see if I could, if it needs it, to give it a little polish.
That's brilliant. Yeah, because we were around there down at Clacton a few weeks ago for our anniversary, and she was going over this music she'd taped and sent to my wife on WhatsApp. And she said, "Oh, that's not that one. There's another one." She'd done a second sort of take of it, and since we found the one that she'd done in the end. So it's just getting it as best it can be. Yeah.
But I'm very happy if you want to just strip it out the WhatsApp and send it to me as an email attachment, and then we'll see what we can do.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Mike. She's not.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. Any other questions? The whole of this recording will be put on the church website. So you can the Congregational Federation's website. So again, you can return to this and go through it all. And as I say, go through the PDF of all these slides and that. Just wanted to end by saying that we had this slide at the end of the last one. What's next? Well, there's nothing as in a follow-up to this webinar. But just to let you know that we do still meet regularly every first Thursday of the month between 1 and 2 for a Congregational Federation Tech meetup. So if you've got any questions or you've got anything you want to share or just for a time of fellowship, we always meet then just to have a bit of a chat and all that. And we discuss all these sorts of issues then, so that's no problem. But the other side of it is also, if you do wish to get in touch and actually take the next step about, right, we want to go ahead and do this, just would appreciate a bit of help, then please do get in touch with me. Currently, I'm working with Burbage Congregational Church, who've asked for help about Facebook, Clarendon Park, who've asked for help with their website and with Facebook as well, and one or two other churches who are just wanting a bit of advice. And I'd be more than happy to work with other churches on any help necessary to advance their position on any of the questions that we've talked about, any of the topics we've looked at, and to give some further help and advice, and to help you out with this, because that's what we can do. And also just to bear in mind something that we did briefly mention at the end of the last one, in that this has been part of the If Only series that Yvonne and Walter have put together. And I must say a big thank you to them for inviting me to actually do this webinar. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. But this was partly through funding from the Council for World Mission. And there is still a small pot of money in there that Yvonne might be able to just give a clarification on this. So that, again, if people was to say, actually, we're going to struggle to raise £99 for a year's subscription to Canva, or a website, perhaps please do have a word with Yvonne, because there might be enough money in the pot to sort of give a discretional grant for helping with something like this. Is that true, Yvonne?
Yeah, absolutely. We have got money in the pot for anyone who's been to one of these webinars who wants to then action something. So if you wanted to buy yourself a new mic, or you want to open the Canva subscription, then you can apply for that, and I'll send you the application form. It's quite a straightforward one. But there's also the starter grants as well. I was thinking when Mike was talking before, if that's something that you want to do, start a podcast, and you want to invest in the mic, and you want to invest in other things to do with that, maybe a little bit more sophisticated, as Mike was talking about, then that could go through a starter grant, because that's up to £100. Because it's something new, isn't it? It's reaching out to those people who are potentially unreachable through a Sunday morning worship service.
I think Steph was quite interested in that. He was messaging me because I do one for the URC and everything. He was thinking it would be quite good for them as well, so that we can reach out to the people that can't make it to the church. So I'll get him to talk to you about that as well. I'm very interested in the tech meetup, Neil, because my job's going to be doing the website and everything, and it would be really good to be able to connect. The only thing is, we're living in Scotland. You wouldn't believe they must be about 20 years behind, I think, theologically speaking, than England, and nobody does that. Got their little pockets of church, and they're all right, they're quite happy, but they're not very good at reaching out. So I'm finding that it's going to be really useful for me to be able to contact people, otherwise I'm lonely.
Yeah, very much so. That'd be no problem at all. We have a great little group meet up there. Different people come different months when questions are on their minds, things like that. So yeah, please feel free to drop in on that first Thursday of the month.
How do we get? Have you got like a Zoom thing that you can send out then, or? Yeah,
it will be sent to Steph by our admin group. They do it for me, usually the Wednesday, the day before they send out the Zoom link. So make sure that either Steph forwards it to you, or it is also on the CF website. If you look for the technical page, it's also on there as well.
Okay.
For technical, it's on there.
I'm half congregational and half URC at the moment. It's all right. And Walter,
very good.
Don't mention my name to Walter, because he'll cry.
No problem. Excellent. Okay. Any final questions?
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, it's been wonderful having this opportunity to meet with you again. Thank you very much for being part of it. And as I say, these resources will be on the website. Do get in touch with us. All my details will be on there as well, so you can easily get hold of me and contact me. And like we've already had 2 people with their success stories so far, I shall be looking forward to hearing your stories of the things that you've done in weeks to come. So please do let us know how you've got on with it all, won't you?
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
very much.
Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, it's good to
Thanks,
meet you,
bye-bye.
Sarah.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. See you soon,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.